Greetings and welcome to Parsing John. Today we are in our second video taking a look at the comparison between the Greek text and the Latin text of this passage. Today we're going to do verse 39 and verse 40. And then we've got one more video which will take through, I believe, 42. Let's go ahead and get started. What we're looking for here is to see how close the Latin text is to the Greek text. Since the Greek text is the older one, it's the authority. So whatever the form is in the Greek, any languages that are translated from that should endeavor to be at least as close as possible. In our previous section, the Latin was having some serious problems keeping same or related tenses in the participles. We had a lot of aorist participles in the Greek, but we had present participles in the Latin. We had a pluperfect verb in the Greek and then an imperfect verb in the Latin, which are two very different ideas. And then at one instance, which is very strange, we had a present participle in the Greek and a perfect participle in Latin, so tense was all wonky there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the text. We've got, he says to them, which is present tense. Dicit eis, present tense. We've got indirect objects. That's good. So imperative, erkeste, come, and future, you will see. And then in the Latin, we've got venite, present active imperative, come, and videte, which is another imperative. So here already we've got a problem where the Latin has an imperative, but the Greek has a future tense action. So the Greek is saying, you come here, and then of course isn't in the text, but it's roughly implied, and then you will see. Whereas here we have come and see, two commands. So a little bit off there. Moving on. They came, aorist tense. They came, perfect tense. That's good. Perfect and aorist are roughly equivalent. Therefore and saw. We don't have a word for therefore in Latin, which is unfortunate because you don't normally put something in there unless you really want it there for a good reason. So that's another thing that the Latin is missing, but we've got another perfect tense here and another aorist tense here. So those two verbs match. Where would be good. Third singular present. He is staying. Third singular imperfect. He was staying. So here we've got two tenses not matching either, as we've talked about something. In the Greek, since we've got a present tense right here, it's going to be more vivid, and that's usually why you would have a present tense in a historical account, which is what all of this is. It's in Latin we call it the I think at least it's called the present historic, something like that, where the author will throw the present tense in there to draw the reader in. So that's probably what's happening here in the Greek. But the Latin is completely missed out on that, and instead it's still talking about it in the past tense. So other than not matching the vividness of the word right here, this isn't actually that big of a deal since we've got perfect tense. Well, that's direct discord. But still, it doesn't match because we've got the present tense right there. It's a problem. Moving on. And near him they stayed. This is aorist tense. And near him they remained, perfect tense. So maneo and meno here, they are, I think, actually probably the same word, just shared between the two languages. So that's good. Accusative of extent of time, for that day. And then we've got ablative of duration, not duration of time, ablative of time when, or ablative of time within which. So within that day, or that day. So not quite the same functions going on here, because Jerome could have put this in the accusative, then we would have the Latin accusative of duration of time, and then they would be identical. Oh well. But we do have a distance demonstrative and a distance demonstrative right there, so that's good. Hour, however, was just as the 10th. Hour was as the 10th. We've got a however in here, but nothing like that appears in the Greek, so it's very strange that it appeared there. It doesn't really do much to add, and even if it was adding more information, unless it's adding clarity, like Sad did back in verse 38 or 37 probably, that was fine. It added clarity. Autem doesn't really do anything here that I can detect, so that's another problem. Yikes. He was Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter. And we've got, he was, however, Andrew, brother of Simon Peter. taking a look here, again, we don't have anything to justify there being an autem. Now, since several of these have appeared, it might be that there is a part of Latin speech that expects this in there, but honestly, I don't remember seeing anything like that in anything else that I've read. I haven't read that far. So it could be that they are justified to be here, even though the Greek doesn't have them. But I'm going to err on the side of caution and say, nah, probably not. Moving forward. Where did we go? One from the two of those having heard from John. Visible? Yes, that is visible. So we have aorist participle here, and no other verbs. Ek partitive, one from the two who had heard from John. We've got partitive with x, so these are the exact same construction here, which is nice. And then rather than going with a participle, which the Latin could have done, it went for an alternate, which Latin does all the time, so that's fine. Went with a relative clause, got aorist tense, and this is pluperfect tense, so this is just bumping it further back in time. Now, had we had a participle and it had been of the wrong tense, like so many of them have been, then that would have been an issue. But I don't think that having it pluperfect here is an issue with aorist, since they have taken it out of the same style of sentence and instead changed it to something more Latin, if you will. So I don't see a problem with pluperfect, that's fine. From John, that's fine. And having followed him. Aorist active participle here with akoluthei santon. And then we take a look at this. And secuti, having followed him. And then we've got fuerant, which is that word which I didn't know what to do with beforehand, and I still have not figured it out. It could be in some way related to the passive periphrastic conjugation, but that's normally with future, so this is just weird. So aorist tense, but pluperfect tense. And since I'm already, as an authority, not, allowing pluperfect to be fine with this one, and we take this as another verb within this clause, which makes sense because we've got the conjunction right there, then it would make sense for these two to match in the same tense, while these two are matching in the same tense. The really weird thing is why we have sumese fui in a form of fui with this, when we should properly expect eram or sum as our form. So it should be erant or sunt with secuti in order to get the equivalent tense in this. If we wanted the pluperfect pluperfect deponent, since this is a deponent verb, then we would just have secuti erant, and then it would mean they had followed him. And if we wanted the perfect tense, which would have been the equivalent of the aorist, then we would want secuti sunt, they have followed him, or they just followed him. It's very weird right there. So we're done with that text, other than this insanity right there, which I still don't know what to do with. Let's take a look. We've got an imperative here when we've got a future right here, which is a little bit off. We have imperfect, and it's subjunctive. And then we've got, forgot to mention that. We've got present active here, indicative. We've got a subjunctive there. So that actually changes it. So we have actually what's going on here. Sorry, I forgot about that. We've got an indirect question right here, which is why we have the subjunctive. And we want to talk still about the past time, which is okay. But here we don't have the same construction at all for an indirect question for Greek. We just leave this in the indicative. So Latin actually has a completely different way of handling this. So yeah, this is completely forgivable. Change of tense. That's not actually an issue. Perfect tense, aorist. Different type of time construction here than is here. It's not too bad though. Errant autems for whatever reason. This is the same. Exact same construction. Ex duobus, ecton duo. And then different type of clause, but the same idea. And there's just complete insanity right there. So, in spite of all the confusion, I hope, taking a look at this, you've learned something, and I hope this has been helpful for you. Thank you very much for joining me. In our next video, we tie off this paragraph, and then next week we're going to move on forward and start hacking away at the end of this chapter. Thank you very much for joining me. Have a good day.